The investigation into Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh is now fully underway, but the FBI has not indicated to the Senate when it will conclude the investigation. According to a senior GOP source telling Fox, they were told the probe could be wrapped up as early as tomorrow. Is that enough time to conduct a thorough investigation? What about the latest claims by a teammate from the basketball team that Kavanaugh lied during his hearing about his drinking? I want to bring in the Five co-host, Juan Williams, who's also the author of the brand new book, What the Hell Do You Have to Lose? Trump's War on Civil Rights. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Liz.
The FBI, we would believe, will take the time that it needs to get this done. 2 days?
Oh, I think it should take the full time. I think Jim Comey, the former FBI director, and of course, you know, the man who's involved in so much back and forth with President Trump, said he thought the FBI was fully capable of doing this, but they needed their time. And I think that's a rational, reasonable thing to say, that you don't want to rush something as critical as this, because we're talking about here is a lifetime appointment. So I think if you want to help Judge Kavanaugh to repair the damage that's been done to his reputation and the potential damage to the institution of the Supreme Court, I think you should make sure that every step is taken.
Mitch McConnell, who of course was running the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing, is now speaking right now, and he is discussing this issue. As we look at what the Senate feels, we know that the GOP members are very unhappy about the development that happened where Jeff Flake, the GOP senator from Arizona, said, you know what, I'll vote to push Brett Kavanaugh forward, but I do want to see an extended investigation. President Trump actually agreed with him on that. Today, during his news conference in the Rose Garden, President Trump did surprise some people where he said Brett Kavanaugh appeared to have some difficulty with alcohol. And Brett Kavanaugh didn't seem to admit that in his hearing, yet there is now a North Carolina professor who was at Yale with him and says that he was untruthful in his testimony and that Brett Kavanaugh was an aggressive, heavy drinker. Why should this matter, his drinking in college, to serving on the Supreme Court?
I think it's the wrong question. I think the right question is, did he lie to the Senate Judiciary Committee? And I think if that's the case, then it would damage his credibility overall. It's going to be very hard to go back 30 years. And so what the FBI is doing and what the Senate are doing are trying to speak to the credibility of this man, his character. Really, what we're involved with here is character exploration. And so if it comes down to the case that, well, Brett Kavanaugh wasn't forthcoming about his drinking, then it leads to questions about, is he forthcoming about his sexual behavior? And that would lead to questions about this woman, Professor Ford, and who's telling the truth.
Christine Blasey Ford, of course, was the one who testified, saying that she remembered him as being the one who had assaulted her back during high school. But the special prosecutor who was brought in, Rachel Mitchell, has said today, and she questioned Dr. Ford, she has said in a memo she would not bring criminal charges against Brett Kavanaugh because she says this is a hard one. It's beyond he said, she said. They don't have any corroborating evidence of people who were there that Dr. Ford said was there.
Correct. But remember that this prosecutor was brought in by the Republicans on the committee because they were all men. And they wanted to avoid the appearance of being unfair to Dr. Ford. So they brought in a woman prosecutor. But let's make no mistake about it. She's a partisan in this fray. And that memo reads like a partisan assessment of Dr. Ford, because if you look at the polls that are out today, more Americans than ever are saying they believe Dr. Ford, and Kavanaugh should not be confirmed.
Even a Fox poll. I will say this, that as a business network, we are looking at a very strong economy. Your book focuses on that moment where President Trump during the campaign had said to African Americans, you know, you don't have the jobs that you need. You don't have the income you need. It's not a fair situation. What do you have to lose? You've had 8 years of President Obama. And now he references that things are looking better, not just for African Americans, but for minorities in the rest of America.
Right. So, first of all, I think when he said that, he really wasn't talking to blacks or Latinos or any minority. I think he was talking to white Americans. And I think he was pushing a fear button with regard to, my God, look at these people. So much dysfunction, so much poverty, lack of jobs, violence in their neighborhoods, people in Chicago shooting each other. He literally said life in black neighborhoods is worse than life in Afghanistan. That's what he said. So I think he was suggesting, you know what, I, Donald Trump, will stand in the breach and I will keep these folks away and stop this kind of madness. I'm not going to be some snowflake and I'm not going to pretend that things are all right. But I think he really distorted life in black America when he said that. It was a very condescending statement. I mean, the fact is, here we are on the Business Network, 40% of black Americans earn between $35,000 and $100,000. Another 12% earn between $100,000 and $200,000. So my point to you is most black Americans are in the middle class, and it's an incredible story of how they got there, striving, ambitious people after the American dream. There still is a tremendous wealth gap between blacks and whites. But goodness gracious, to demean people in that way, to say the 20% who live in poverty define the entirety, I don't think that was fair.
Well, Kanye loves them.
Well, I mean, boy, does Kanye ever.
I'm telling you, there's an African-American who came from not very wealthy background, and, you know, he speaks for himself, certainly, and there are some supporters. But, Juan, I think it's important for all of our viewers to know this. Even if you disagree with the premise, this is the very type of thing, and it goes for the other side, too. We need to hear people with whom we disagree, and maybe we're eliminated in some way, shape, or form. Good luck to you.